In this video, we're going to take a look at why it's important to study cells. As you know, in grade 10 biology, we're going to go from cell all the way up to organism, but we're going to start with the cell itself. So let's see why we want to study cells. Why do we care about cells? So first of all, let's start with a little warm-up question. What are we, so humans, and every other living thing made of? Cells, Lego blocks, or proteins? Hopefully this one isn't too tricky. Cells. We're made of trillions and trillions of cells. Those cells contain proteins, but we are made up of cells, the smallest living thing. Those cells are made up of atoms, but those atoms aren't living. The cell is the living part. So atoms make molecules, compounds. Then eventually there's enough of them that come together to make the cell, and the cell is the first living thing. And for humans, we are made up of trillions and trillions of cells. So because we're made up of cells, we probably want to know a little bit about the things we're made up of. We want to know about, what hurts them, what makes them healthy, so that way we are healthy. Remember, if our cells are hurt, so are we. So there are many reasons to study cells. You can watch these videos here to get some more information and more specific examples. I recommend you do watch this video. Again, you don't have to memorize everything in a video. You can just watch it and jot down the most interesting thing you heard or learned in the video. But here are the 5 main things or main reasons why we might want to study cells. So first of all, studying cells allows you to understand how organisms function. So if we know how cells work, we might be able to better understand how humans breathe or heal, for example, when they get hurt. So if I get a scratch or if I break a bone and I understand how cells work, I can understand how the bone might heal or the scratch might heal. And then from there, maybe I can develop ways to help my cells heal more effectively. Or maybe I can take a look at cells that heal well and somehow help cells that don't heal well start to heal better. So maybe certain nerve cells in the spine that don't reproduce or repair themselves when they're damaged. Can I somehow take what I know about other cells that heal well and then maybe teach those cells to do that as well? If you study cells, you can learn about how to protect your cells in order to prevent infection and other harmful effects. So, for example, if I know there's a disease out there that might hurt my cells, well, maybe I can create a vaccine to help protect my cells from that disease. So, for example, the flu vaccine or the COVID vaccine, we study how those vaccines affect the cell's ability to fight off disease. And then we develop vaccines to help our cells fight off disease so that we don't get sick if that disease does infect us, or the pathogen that causes the disease infects us. Studying cells might be important because if we study cells, we can better diagnose an illness. So if I study cancer cells and I know what cancer cells look like, when I study human cells, I can say, well, you know what, your cells are starting to look like cancer cells. And so you might have cancer. Now we need to try to treat that cancer and to cure that cancer. If you're experiencing some symptoms and the doctor takes the samples of your cells and they realize that your cells look like the cells that someone with a certain disease would have, well, then I could diagnose you and say, well, you have that disease as well, and now we can begin treatment. Okay, if I study cells, well, then I could also maybe figure out how to treat cells to heal certain diseases and illnesses, right? So if I know how cancer cells work, well, maybe I can figure out how to stop cancer cells from taking over my body. And then also, we can learn how to stop harming cells through our own actions and through our own choices. So if we study the effect of, let's say, alcohol and cigarette smokes and vaping on cells, and we find that those have negative effects on our cells, well, then I know now to avoid those activities to keep my cells healthy. So these are just some reasons to want to study cells. Again, the main idea is that you're made up of cells. So you should know what you're made up of. So that way, if your cells ever get sick, we know how to treat them and hopefully fix them one day. Again, super important. You are cells. So biology, you're really studying, in biology, you're really studying yourself. And that's super important, if you ask me. Um, Another very interesting application of studying cells is it could actually help us to understand climate change a little bit more. So I want you to watch this video later on after having done this lesson to see how microorganisms are making an impact on climate change. So do watch that. Here we have just some other examples of why it's important to study cells. So, for example, we study bacterial cells, and after studying bacterial cells, we were able to develop antibiotics to treat disease. So, antibiotics are basically the medicine you take when you have a bacterial infection, and the antibiotics will kill those harmful bacteria that might have caused the disease in your body. By studying cells and how viruses interact with cells, we were able to develop vaccines like the COVID vaccine. By studying cancer cells, we were able to develop more effective cancer treatments. There's these things called stem cells, and so that's being studied quite a bit. And we're able to, by studying stem cells, we're able to come up with more effective treatments for diseases like diabetes or Parkinson's, or even helping in regrowing parts of the body that you wouldn't think should be able to regrow. And then again, like I said, I do want you to watch this video here on microorganisms and how they relate to climate change.